This episode of the Stockbury Dark is brought to you by Shop Shogun. Shop Shogun is your one-stop shop for the latest and greatest in punk, hardcore, and heavy metal merchandise. Officially licensed web stores from bands such as 100 Demons, Integrity, Disembodied, Madball, Agnostic Front, and many more. The Stockbury Dark, along with Shop Shogun, are offering a special code to discount your next order when you use it on their website. Use the promo code SDPODCAST to save 10% from your next order from Shop Shogun. Again, the code is SDPODCAST. Their website is shopshogun.com. Also, check out their page, Shop Shogun, on Facebook and at Shop Shogun Merch on Instagram.
This is Klaus from the Stockbury Dark. I would like to take the opportunity to thank all of you who's listening, and also thank all of you who's sharing and rating the Stockbury Dark. We touch on subjects that can be hard to express. Sometimes we touch on experiences that are painful to talk about. Hauntings, the occult, the paranormal, and darkness in different shapes. Me and Pete would therefore like to thank all our guests, friends, past and present, for being a part of this. We didn't know what to expect, but the response has been nothing short of fantastic. In all this darkness, you make us glow. Thank you. You can find us at thestockburydark.com, on Podcaster, and on iTunes. For interaction, visit the official Stockbury Dark on Instagram and the Stockbury Dark on Facebook. If you want to get in touch with us, you will reach us at thestockburydark@gmail.com. Please continue to rate us and share our episodes. What we do is for you. Welcome to the Stockbury Dark.
Hello and welcome to the Stockbury Dark. This is Peter Morrissey.
And I'm Klaus out in Stockholm, Sweden.
And today we got a really special guest, one of my oldest and dearest friends, Aaron Butkus from the band Death Threat. He's actually in the house in Waterbury, beautiful Waterbury, Connecticut today. What's up, Aaron? How you doing?
Hey guys, how's it going? I'm excited
doing,
to be here. Great, Klaus. How are you?
I'm fine.
All right.
It's like the first time we had someone right here next to us, even though you're actually in another room right now. We're not that technical, but
no,
it's you're in part of the studio on the other side of the house. But
so I'm very comfortable. I'm in the living room I've been in many times over the years, so it feels natural.
Yes, enjoy yourself.
Yes, going through your shit. Just kidding.
Spring has arrived in CT now.
Finally, I guess today we'll see. It may snow again tomorrow, but right now it's nice. It's supposed to be in the 80s, so we'll see.
Yeah, the sun came out for the first time, which I'm not the biggest fan of in the first.
Yeah.
But actually, Anyways, today Aaron's here, and it's actually a lot of things I wanted to talk to with Aaron about over the years because we have a ton of stories in between all of us in this area, and Aaron grew up in Connecticut and moved all over the place, but he's had some really creepy experiences, and maybe not so creepy, but things that stuck with him from a young age, that we briefly touched on, and I'm really excited to hear like some of the stuff that we did speak about. So wherever you want to start, Aaron, from like any certain timeline, we can go right ahead and get right into the meat of things.
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that, the area well, like you said, I moved around a lot. But one of the places I kind of felt like I grew up was, my grandmother's house, and that's in Unionville, a place I know you're very, very familiar with.
Oh yeah.
Pete, you've hung out there many times. And before I knew you, you knew my cousin Noel. You already had a connection to my family at a young age. Then we became friends through the scene. But that town, Unionville, is, like I said, still to this day was kind of like the one place I always went back to. That was the one home. Because with my family, we moved around a lot. So we're in and out of places every few years. So, but I mean, Unionville, total American suburbia, small town, used to be a farm town, a lot of history in the town. The house that my grandmother lived in was from the 1800s. I want to say maybe the 1850s. Big, huge Victorian on the base of a hill that you could tell used to be like farmland, And honestly, at a young age, in that town, in that house, when I'd stay there, I always thought there was people, in the room in the middle of the night, in the house, in certain spots where I'd walk down to use the bathroom, but it never scared me. Strangely, as a kid, I wasn't like afraid of the dark. I just felt that there was things there, and
like a presence.
Don't get me wrong, like a presence, yeah. And don't get me wrong, there was times that I was scared. There was dolls in the room that I would stay in that when the lightning would flash would scare scare me really bad, and stuff like that. But I never really thought of it, And I remember I'd go down the steps, and you ever see those? They're really cool mirrors, and they're actually like a fisheye, the mirror, and it usually has like an American eagle on it.
Oh,
they're very old school.
Yeah.
So we had one of those at the base of the steps, at the bottom of the steps, and it was a duplex. It was a big house. And you could always see into the living room to the left. And I would always walk down the stairs, which were super creaky. And I would always kind of check the mirror because I just felt like there was somebody around the corner. But I would never see anybody. And I would make my way to the bathroom. And there was night lights throughout the house because, it was like my grandmother's house. There was older people walking around. And but yeah, long story short, I always felt these things, but never really thought much of it. And because we moved around a lot and we lived in a lot of like places that other people had lived in, a lot of people had lived in. I think I ended up living in a lot of houses that definitely had some spirit activity and felt the same types of things that I felt at my grandmother's in different places in Connecticut. And so and at the time, again, I didn't know what it was, but it was there. And then there was a dream thing that happened when I was a kid, and I still have the same dreams. I have reoccurring dreams my whole life. And dreams are always, I think, kind of like an escape for me. From my childhood and things that I didn't like in my life. And so I have these dream connections that have been going from about the same age, from about the age of 5, reoccurring dreams. I mean, I have a whole world that I could probably draw out over time. Worlds that connect. When I first started touring the U.S. and traveling, I would always look for places that I would see in my dreams that I could never find them. Similar intersections, similar places, but never the exact place, So, and again, these were all things that I remembered, from my childhood. That seemed like whatever. It was just like, oh, I'm having these same dreams. I'm going to these same places. I'm seeing these same faces, in all these places. And, I think for the longest time, I thought that face was my dream girl. And because it was like the same like kind of woman's like entity or face. And
was it
like,
always just one person or was it other?
It's hard to tell because I feel like there was versions, I feel like there was other versions, but I feel like it's always been one. So it's a little strange. So it's like, I feel like, and I remember that from when I was a kid, and this reoccurring face, which strangely ties in back to the room at my grandmother's, the room where there was dolls, that would scare me when the lightning would flash. That same doll's face, was a reoccurring thing. And so I couldn't differentiate if this was the girl in my dreams or if it was this creepy doll. I know that sounds insane, but because in the visions of this woman's face, it seemed realer in the dreams. It didn't seem like a porcelain doll or something like that with black eyes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Although it appeared that way, it still did have this almost like black and white look in my dreams and in my connections to it. So there's all these things, and that all goes back to my childhood, and kind of carried on forward. And then I'm trying to think when I'd say maybe, I guess in my 20s, I lived in a house in Simsbury, and we'd hear this woman's voice all the time, and we thought it was my cousin Casey, but she would like end up not being home that night, and she'd be like at her boyfriend's, like, oh, it's not Casey, and we could never figure it out. And we were all partying in the basement, and somebody took pictures. And it was actually Angela, who you know.
Was this
and,
the House of Pain you're talking about?
Yeah, the House of Pain in Simsbury.
Yep.
Probably one of the first places as a young adult where I was like, oh boy, there's something here. You know what I mean?
Now, class, Aaron lived in a couple of like pretty infamous homes where, you know, every weekend there was something going on. If we weren't at a show, we were either at the House of Pain,
yeah,
or
the
later
Roadhouse.
on there was the Roadhouse, which was miles down the road as well. And these were big party houses. You know, like 3 or 4 of our friends lived in this home, and there was always something going on, and there was wild nights at these places.
Yeah,
and
you
if I can remember
at the
correctly,
House of Pain.
The House of Pain's gone now. They knocked it down years ago, right?
They did. They demolished it, and those were all houses that were connected to like. They did a lot of like bomb testing and stuff at Ensign and Bickford. So good chance a lot of innocent people died on that property, maybe even in that property around there.
Oh, I never knew.
Yeah, that building we rented from Casey's father, Bill, who worked for Ensign and Bickford. Dude, we rented that place for $150 a month. It was insane. But yeah, it was those were all work buildings like that. The people that worked there testing the bombs and stuff they all lived in. So at that house, somebody took some pictures. It was me rolling a joint, and I think like our friend Jim Kulicki was in the picture, and Angela and a few other people. And above me in the smoke, you just see a woman's legs, like she's just walking above me. This picture exists. I can find this. It's in my storage unit somewhere. It hasn't gone away. But you can see the legs walking above me in the smoke, and that's the exact place where we'd hear it. Because right above that, in the room above it, was a TV, and we always thought it was coming from the TV. This woman's voice, but she may have been stuck, you know, in that part of the house.
So you think this could have been the same person from when you were 5 years old, like the same?
I mean, it could be like a guardian angel for sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like this could be somebody who's been protecting me my whole life. Because, like I said, I never had this real sense of fear. And I'll be honest, there was times, other stories, other places, other homes where I have been confronted by like bad entities and been told to get out and like things like that in my dreams. And I've dealt with some bad ones, but in the most part, I think that I feel like I've had guardian angels with me my whole life. Those could be some of the things that I heard in my room and that were like following me around the house. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Yeah. Aaron, would you share that picture with us?
Absolutely. It's going to take me a little bit to find it. I don't know if I'll have it ready for this when this episode airs, but if I can, I will. And I'll ask Steve too, because Steve has a copy of a picture of me that he took in Baltimore when we were on tour, and I am just surrounded by orbs. It's like insane. It looks like I'm like at a bee farm, but no, it's orbs. They're like all around me. Now he might be able to get that picture sooner than I can find the other one, but the other one does exist, and I can get it for you at some point.
That'll be great for the website.
It's pretty wild, and it's pretty distinct. So I guess, so I realized then, I was like, oh man, there's like some stuff going on around me. Still didn't really scare me. Still very intrigued by it. I mean, we'd eat, we'd go to graveyards during the witching hour and like different stuff just to kind of see if, we could like feel any presence of things. But I found that when I looked for it, it wasn't there, you know what I mean? But it was around me all the time. So I think the next phase of me really feeling like connections was in my 30s. Nicole, my ex-girlfriend Nicole, and I, who you know very well, Pete, we lived in Chicopee in a house, and the woman who owned the people who owned the house, we knew the woman had died in the house. I think she died in the basement. And this one was like, Nicole never heard anything, but I heard it all the time. Like when the upstairs was empty and nobody was living in it, they'd just be walking, Middle of the night, I'd be working on art late night down in the basement, and I'd hear her. I think her name was Frances. It was to the point where I was like, "Hey, Frances, it's me. I'm just finishing up a painting. I'll be out of here in a while." Like it wasn't scary, but I knew she was there. And the husband would come around and he'd be like, "Hey, can I look for this in the basement?" And I think he was trying to look for her. I think he knew that she was still kicking it there. Like she died there. It was really sad. And like he was a great guy. They were an old Italian couple. And I'd always let him in. I'd be like, "Hey, come in," because he left a bunch of his tools. He left a bunch of his personal stuff in the house when they bought it. So,
do you think he left that there purposely so we can always go there and try to?
I think so. Yeah, because it was like his
track her down.
Yeah, it was his old workstation, and I could just tell when he was there, he was kind of like
sentimental,
looking around. Yeah, very sentimental. So at that point, then I was like, okay, I'm really having connections. I mean, I'd be asleep, and I think Nicole was whispering in my ear to wake up or something, or saying my name. And I wake up, she's dead asleep, and it was the woman just like saying my name, like waking me up, in the middle of the night. I would wake up and I would see her there, and she would kind of dissipate as my eyes would open, kind of like it was coming out of a dream. But I knew that I was like, she was just standing right there in the living room, just whatever, trying to get my attention or watching me or whatever. And then it just kept going there from there, man, because then I went out to the desert. And when I lived out in New Mexico, the first house I lived in, it was brief. It was just for a month. I didn't hear anything. The second house was pretty wild. It sounded like 3 or 4 people walking down the hallway at night. And the first time it happened, my girlfriend at the time, I kind of jumped up and I was like, "Did you hear that?" And we had a big fireplace, so I grabbed a big axe. And it sounded like there was like 3 to 4 people on the other side of the wall in the front of my house. And but the 2 Rottweilers we had weren't doing anything. They weren't barking. They were just chilling. And I'm looking at them like, "Hey guys, I'm gonna need your help here."
Right.
And I had to go see. I mean, it was so distinctive of a noise of footsteps. So I walked out, nothing. I'm like, okay. I went all the way down to the end, make sure nobody's in the bathroom, all the way to the other end, open up the front of the house, turn on the light, get a flashlight, walk around. I mean, it was so real. And it kind of just kept going, but there was never anybody there. And you'd hear people at the other end of the house. So it got to the point where I just stopped checking to even see, So clearly I was living in a house that was haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on the base of a mesa in New Mexico. Very, very old townships and towns there. I mean, it was just the chances of, activity like that were pretty clear. And long story short, in that time, I met a shaman and who actually helped me. I was going through a hard time. So it was like a random meeting, but I'd been having this reoccurring dream while I was living there. And it was that land, but it looked like it was like 500 years earlier. You know what I mean? It was the exact road and land I was on. I was across from a river. But in the dream, I was just walking around and I had a hatchet in my head. And I wasn't feeling any pain. I was just walking. And it was like on my property that I lived on then. But I was like, this is weird. This is like the 1500s. In my dream, I'm thinking, what is this? And why the hell is there a hatchet in my head?
Sounds fantastic.
It was amazing, dude. I mean, honestly, it was really wild. And I was feeling no pain. I didn't feel like somebody had done that to myself. It was just the hatchet was there and I was walking around. And so when I met this shaman and we talked about a lot of things, I told him this. He goes, "Oh," he's like, "Well, you've been here before. You and the woman you're with, you've been here before. You've done this. You've walked this walk together before. You know what I mean? It's like you've done this in another lifetime." And I was like, he goes, "And that's why the dream." He's like, "You're remembering the land the way it was when you guys were here the last time, when you met me, when you met her, when you met so-and-so."
Was the shaman native?
He was, yeah.
Yeah.
He was. And not from there either. He was from LA. He was mixed. He was like half and half. I think he was Italian and Native American, strangely. And, but yeah, it floored me. And I was like, and I've been having all these dreams my whole life of these other worlds and these other places. And it seemed to all kind of come together and culminate in New Mexico while I was there. So while I was there, I started just writing lyrics. I mean, obviously, that's just who I am. And so all this stuff was kind of affecting me. I said, well, let me just start writing this stuff down. And I started talking about these, at night, these spirits dancing around me, all night. I just hear them just coming and going, but not really afraid. It was like I was dancing with them, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it was very, very natural. But I started taking all these notes and writing all this stuff down. And then, I feel like maybe New York, I think because there's so much going on there, I didn't have as many connections. I would hear stuff outside because I was there for about 5 or 6 years. And I think that was one phase after being really connected to spirits and all these things. Mm-hmm. When I went to New York, there's so much going on there. I think the noise, it just kind of blended in with the rest of the noise. But the dreams kept going. And when I was in New York, I kept dreaming. Then I started dreaming more about New Mexico, about other lives in New Mexico and all this stuff. And so even though the spirit stuff wasn't going as much, the dream kind of weaving or whatever still kept going. Mm-hmm. Am I saying too much? I'm
No,
just going. I'm going and
this-
going here. All right, good.
no, brother. This is why you're on here.
All right, good. I mean, just I've talked to some people about this stuff, but it's it's time for me to talk about it more.
So the dreams you're talking about, were these like very similar to the ones you've always been experiencing, like otherworldly places that you started becoming familiar with, and the landscapes and the.
Absolutely, it felt.
It's
very
funny,
like,
because you're saying this, and you told me you started listening to the episode with Max, and that's been a big thing for Max as well, where
yeah.
his whole life he's had these dreams of this almost like other world, which was very similar to the world he lived in, but some things were just a bit off, but they were all mapped out. And he said he can describe perfectly
Wow.
this other almost world where he can travel from one place to another through his dreams, and
Like
these people were in there, these buildings,
Wow.
these cities.
It was pretty much mapped out as New York City, and
Okay.
everywhere, every place is connected, so he could take like Avenue A and then get to his grandmother's house, and then get down to Florida if he walks a few blocks down, etc. And it's reoccurring. So it's fantastic.
Wow, that's wild.
I've never heard like anything like that until Max told me, and now you saying it like a month later is like two of my very close friends with very similar experience.
Oh, that's great. I can't wait to next time I see him in person to have a chat about that. Because I'm a big believer in a therapist I was going to this past year in California. She actually specialized in dreams, and so we kind of started going into that. And she's like, I can help you map out this world and all these things. And it's very interesting. It's very intriguing to me because it's been a whole life of it. And yeah, I'm sorry, I got off track for a little bit there.
No problem.
Get my head straight. The worlds, yeah. So I think I was saying New York. I kind of went back to, I kind of kept going back to these dream worlds. And it's funny because I think there's all these intersections in it. There's like a mall, this reoccurring mall that has like the steepest escalator you could ever be on. But every time I'm in it, I'm just like free, and there's usually water. I'm very connected to water also for some reason. And there'll be water in my worlds where it's like, you ever see those pools that look like they have no edge and it's just the water going over it?
An infinity pool,
it's safe.
It's called.
Yeah, infinity pool. That's what a lot of the parts of my world are. I'm able to swim and almost fly through it. You know what I mean? And then there is streets where I'm actually like on the ground, but a lot of it is me like flying and like swimming. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that all kept going throughout New York. There was one place, the last stop I was at, right before I came home to be with my dad. Every night, in the witching hour, there was a swing that would just creak in the backyard. I was on the third floor, and like every night, like it would just turn 3:00 and it would just like creak, and I'd be like, that is so crazy. I couldn't even and that was it. That's all that happened outside there. But there was times in the house where I felt something, you know what I mean? But again, nothing scary. It was just like I'd pass it, which kind of actually brings me to 49 Maynard, your house. Because I've lived in so many places with either these guardian angels or time spirits or whatever they are, it becomes very comfortable for me. So I got really comfortable, and I'd heard horror stories of the ghost that could possibly be in your house as a suicide ghost. I'm like, that's exactly the opposite of the ghost I need. I'm fucked up enough. I don't need I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
But I also knew I've lived in crazy places and and it is what it is. So I'll meet this guy or gal or whatever, but I never really did. But I always felt, at times I felt presence, you know what I mean? Whether it was in the corner of my room, I was in the front room by the porch, definitely in the hallway. I felt like I was just like, hey, what's up? Like kind of strangers, and I just passing through. I was alert. I knew when it was the witching hour. I was always like, I'd be like, I'm going to hear something. I'm going to feel something. But again, it wasn't bad there. But I've also become, well, first of all, I mean, I've dealt with depression my whole life. So it's like I get very comfortable and just numb and like kind of just, I am drawn to the dark. You know what I mean? So being that way, I've had plenty of times where I'd be wide awake at night, from the highs and lows of depression. And my mind would be wide open. Other times where my mind was wide open because of drugs. I mean, anybody knows me, knows I've partied my whole life and I've abused drugs my whole life. And when your shit is wide open like that, that's when you let them in.
Mm-hmm.
In the Bible, it's they call paraphernalia is I believe it's like if they consider like a form of spiritism because drugs would open the mind and let spirits in.
Right. I mean, they say, you leave your body like most susceptible in a lot of instances.
So in these times of depression and self-medicating and being up at 3 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, it was because I was on uppers or whatever, or meds or just weed and booze or whatever, but my receptors were wide open. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was like, anything could come in. So there was a lot of that, you know what I mean? And I would just kind of hear things and feel things, but never anything bad. You know what I mean?
Were there ever any instances of actually seeing shapes or any words that were spoken?
No, I never had any words spoken, but again, because things were, that was that was literally one of the hardest times of my life because my father being sick. And
so you're talking about when you were back in Connecticut.
Yeah. This was when I rented from you, 2014 to 15. And I was, taking care of my father, and it was like the darkest time of my life. So, I think I was just very alert to everything, but I never heard anything. Nobody ever talked to me, which is weird because that happens a lot with me. But there was so much noise in my head, Pete. Everything was so crazy for me. I think it just became part of my own craziness. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it wasn't like, whoa, did that just happen? You know what I mean?
It's kind of all blended into one reality for you.
Yeah, and I was really numb. You know what I mean? It was just like, I just, when I wasn't with him, I was just sleeping, and then I would just have to be awake and just help and do everything we had to do. And then, go back to the depression, and that was always there. But yeah, so there was just so much noise in my head. I think I might've missed out on some good activity in that house, but I did feel it. I felt it in the room. There's times where I wake up and I feel like there's something above me. And it was definitely that. It was definitely chilling near me. Whatever it was, but yeah, no sounds. But just like, I think I just saw something out of the corner of my eye, out of the peripherals, and stuff like that. And definitely like when I'd walk through the hallway at night to go to the bathroom or go get water, I definitely felt like that little kid who was kind of walking through my grandmother's house, like, oh, I know there's somebody behind the couch, but I'm just going to keep walking.
Isn't it crazy? Like those kind of rituals you go through, like living in a place where you're on almost like high alert when you're by yourself, and you're
absolutely
it's a certain time of the evening, and there's certain spots you kind of look or you don't look, because you're not sure if you want to see what's hiding in the corners.
Absolutely.
What Aaron said just now is interesting. Maybe this is going like too deep on it from a psychological point of view, but like Aaron is describing a period in his life when he was worn out, like a lot of shit going on. And then one could argue, which is kind of cool in a way, does that make us less open to these things or even more open? Because we've talked before about like you lived in New York City, and we've talked about like all the layers that we add to ourselves and that we add to our daily lives. But at this point in life, a lot of those layers were gone, and you were tired as well. So maybe when stuff's going on, then it's because the doors are fucking wide open. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Which is a cool thing. Is people say like if you're doing DMT or whatever, you're just hallucinating or whatever. If your body's tired and you're worn out, it means that whatever you're seeing and experiencing, it's coming from the inside. Well, maybe it's the opposite, that we open those doors then.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Sorry, guys, I have a call coming in. I'm not going to take it, obviously. So that house, 54 Forest, that I started talking about earlier.
This is your grandmother's house?
Yeah, my grandmother's house in Unionville. Like since I was a kid, pretty much everybody has died in that house. My grandfather died in that house in the den. on 54. My uncle passed away on 52 Forest. This is all the same house, but it's a duplex now. He died in the living room. My aunt died in the bathroom, and then my father passed away in the same den that his father passed away. So it's like the house where everybody dies,
Mm-hmm.
While I was living at your house, Pete, and while my dad was dying, and after he died, I started that band, the Shadow Dwellers, and
Yep.
the lyrics, all these spirits are dancing around me, was the stuff that started in New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
Turned into a first song for that band, all about spirits and dreams and connections. And then I wrote the rest of it in that house during that dark period. But it was great for writing. I mean, shit was just gushing out, but it was all about my dreams and my dreamlands, and about being possessed, and about depression and drugs and everything. And so I was writing that in your house, a house of spirits, and in my grandmother's house, a house of spirits, like 100%, which just made for this. It just created this record, this sound, this everything. And I was writing a song about my dad. It was about a week or two after he passed, and I was wide open on coke and booze. And it was like that time of night. It was just about 3 a.m, and I'd written this whole other verse. And I started hearing a knocking on the door, and the light started flickering. It's like 3:04 in the morning, and this is like, I'm sitting in like 3 feet from where my father had passed away a week and a half ago.
Wow.
Like in that house where I've always heard things, always, my whole life. So I start writing about it, in this song, and I'm writing. And it's as this shit is happening, and I go outside to have a cigarette, and then somebody's knocking from the inside of the house, and I'm like, all right, now you're fucking with me, Dad. Thinking it's my dad, so I start talking to the light that's flickering. And, well, I don't think it was my dad, come to find out. But so I start talking to the light, like, hey, Dad, I miss you so much. I'd do anything to see you again. Literally would do anything to see you again. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm fucking losing it. So I sat down and I continued writing. And I'd say about, just judging on the time, because I'm a believer of that hour of 3 to 4, I happened to look at my watch on my phone, but I kind of came to. And I was like, I felt like I'd been crying, and like I was shaking a little bit. And I'm like, what is going on, And I looked down, and I have the stuff written, the original writings, and you can see where my handwriting changed. And I'd gotten this knife, this old military knife, and I was wearing it, and it was really, really sharp. And in the lyrics, I start saying that, basically, if I could see my dad again, I'd slit my own throat, and feed my blood to the unholy goat. And kind of like really out of character for me. Anybody who knows me, I mean, I'm crazy, but like I'm not a metal. I'm like some weird. It's like I'm not a metalhead thing, or like whatever. Like I'm not. But I mean, I definitely believe in Satan. Let's be honest. I mean, here I am talking about my connections my whole life. I believe in God and Satan. Mm-hmm. But so I talk about this in the song, and I'm writing this, and I wake up and the knife is out and it's on top of the paper, and I just pick up the knife and I threw it across the den, because clearly I did not want to slit my own throat at that point.
Right. Did you recall writing it like the next day when you went back?
So I do remember writing it, mm-hmm. But it was like, but I don't remember that little time lapse of while I was doing it. So I feel like I invited something in, or was welcoming something that was already there, yes, fucking with me. And I was possessed for a little bit, like 100%. And fortunately, I have a lot of good guardian angels, and I think I have my dad right on my shoulders, and people that, even people like Boulder, who I know would still die for me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And people that would protect me. And so I think I was protected big time because there's a lot of good spirits right there. My uncle, my grandfather, my dad, my aunt, a lot of good spirits right where that was happening. But I definitely wrote it, definitely came to from writing it, you know what I mean? And but don't remember, like at that time, right then, I was like, I don't remember doing this. Mm-hmm. And then the more I thought about it and dwelled on it, I was like, okay, I do, but that wasn't me, So that's the craziest thing that's, ever happened to me in that sense.
Definitely, that's like a very scary thing to almost feel like you've lost control of yourself and couldn't stop.
Yeah, it was bad. I was like, I got to be careful, Mm-hmm. I couldn't listen to this because I ended up, I took all those lyrics, everything, and I wrote a song, and I put it just turned into a song, obviously. and some people are gonna hear it and be like, "Whoa, like what's up, dude?" But maybe they'll hear this too and be like, "Okay." Like at some point, you have to figure out the song is about, you know, spirits and some kind of possession, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's the last really crazy thing that happened to me. It was real quiet out in California. I didn't have really any experiences, but my dreams kept going. I feel like when there's no spirit activity, the dreams, then I go to my dreamlands, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I spend a lot of time there.
Aaron,
But yeah,
is the song released?
it isn't yet. We're actually going to be releasing it soon. But I could share it with you guys, for sure. Yeah, when you hear it, you're like, wow. And then now that you know the story, you know, it makes a little more sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that could definitely be shared. Yeah, we're going to be releasing it soon. Actually, our friend Nikki is mastering it. So
It's a dark yet fantastic story about a song.
yeah, thank you, man. It's yeah, it's weird because I don't know if how it'll be writing another record. I feel like I'd have to like. It was really a crazy time for me, and it was written in the darkest period of my life. So, but yeah, so it's been quiet for a couple of years.
Yeah, because soon after your father had passed, you were offered
Yeah.
a good job out in California,
Mm-hmm.
and you, like you said, you moved back out there, and things seemed to have the darkness and depression that you were feeling. Did it kind of dissipate afterwards?
It did, yeah. I just had to I just had this new thing and this huge project, and I had committed, and I was like, I just have to do this, and I think that just helped, help take care of it. So, yeah, it definitely made a difference. I think because I was in a different place, and I was just moving really fast in a different way, just like nonstop with work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different out there, man. There's out here, I mean, I can feel it just being in Waterbury. I feel it being everywhere I've been. It's these old soul towns. You know what I mean? Like, there's a something about New England and the history here. You feel it in Europe too. It's just so old, And California's a little newer, and I know a lot of crazy stuff's happened out there too. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really. I had trouble finding cemeteries even to like go smoke weed in. And I love walking around and checking out like mausoleums and old tombstones, and I found an amazing one in Oakland, really cool one, that has like some of the masons that are buried there have pyramids, you know what I mean, like as
Right.
their mausoleums. It's pretty amazing.
Were you residing in NorCal when you lived?
Yeah, I was in Northern California, and I know it's there. I know there's haunted cities for sure. I mean, it's the Wild West, you know what I mean? But I think I was at a different place, and I didn't really feel anything. The cool thing is I shipped a bunch of my stuff back when I moved home about a month ago, and I had my dad's ashes, and I was I'm at my family's house, and there's a room, and I just have like basically just put a bunch of my dad's stuff in one spot, and I put his ashes there, and there was like a little crack in the lid, and some of it poured out. So I was like, that's right, I'll just leave it in this is like all his stuff. It's like his fishing stuff. It's like his room pretty much, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But that night it was cool. I had a dream, and it was the 2 bottles of him, and it was like on a table, and it was like they were rolling around, like, and he was like kind of like coming out of the crack. And I was like, oh man, Dad wants to get out. Like, I haven't taken him to like the places he fished, like I got to put him in the river. Like, there's some places I need to take him.
Yeah.
And me and my brothers are actually driving cross country. Noah's moving to LA, and we're going to drive cross. And we're going to take some ashes with us. Then he would go fishing out west in Yellowstone. So there's a couple places, but it was cool to have a connection in a dream to him. You know what I mean? Because he's always in my dreams. But this was a good one. It's like, hey, bud, come on. Get me out in the nature. I got to keep some of his ashes, but
yeah, you got to spread them around.
I got to spread them, and we haven't. You know what I mean? It's been almost 3 years. So, so we're gonna do it right. But it was cool to have that dream and like, kind of have that kind of a connection and be like, yo, what's up, Dad? I'm back. I'm back. Let's do this.
It's a beautiful thing.
So that's about. I'm trying to think if I got other stories.
Yeah, going back to like your grandmother's house, when you were really young, when you said in 5 and you started like almost feeling and sensing things and seeing this woman's face. Was there anyone else in your family that ever had any like similar types of things happen to them? Did you ever tell them about that growing up?
I never. I never did because it just kind of felt like
so normal.
It felt normal, and I felt safe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I had to say anything to anybody.
Like I know you
So it
grew
was
up in a
weird,
pretty religious family too. I wonder
Yeah.
how they would have taken those types of stories.
Well, and you know
coming
what,
from
dude?
you.
That's cool that you said that, because I bet you, because man, as a kid with that, I felt so much guilt, like because of religion. I was like, why do I even know what guilt is? This is horrible. And but what was I gonna say? The religion.
Family
Oh
reaction.
so dude, so for me as a kid, I wouldn't want to say anything, because if I'm talking about something that's not there, that's like spiritism. You know what I mean? Like I knew too much as a kid because of religion.
And we've talked
They could
about
have easily been mistaken as like
Yeah.
almost like something satanic or evil.
Absolutely. And when I was a kid, I was a Jehovah's Witness, so it was like crazy strict and crazy, like if you do this, you're not going to make it into a paradise earth where you live forever.
But we've also we've touched on that subject before, and it's like old school Christians, or say Jehovah's Witnesses also. Like people might believe, but they feel that if you mention it or bring it up, that's inviting something.
An invitation,
Absolutely. You can. Yeah, it's like the speak no evil, hear no evil.
Calling out the devil, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, everything was a sin when I was a kid. The toys I played with, anything. You know what I mean? So yeah, there was always the guilt. So yeah, I would imagine as a kid, thinking anything was weird, I wouldn't want to bring it up, because I'm like, I'll probably just get in trouble for it. Like in the sense that like it may sound anti-religious. You know what I mean?
How about like your brothers or like Noah? Anything
I
with
think
them?
No, it's strange. I don't think Noah's ever really had any type of connections. I know people in my family have, like my Aunt Nancy on my mom's side. She definitely has like dream stuff. We've talked about things like that before. She's definitely had connections. I think maybe my grandfather on my mom's side. So it may have come from that side of the family, and strangely, but like really revealed itself on my dad's side of the family in that house. You know what I mean? Because I don't have any stories that tie to them, to my mom's side of the family, but I may have gotten it from them. Who knows? It's weird. It's a weird thing to be exposed to and not really know, and be kind of confused by. And I was confused enough. I was like a little robot, little Jehovah's Witness. So here I was, going door to door.
That's a pretty tough thing to, as an adult, think back on it. As a child, having to like live a lifestyle like that.
Yeah, definitely was not easy. So and that's where my dreams, all this stuff. I had all these escapes as a kid because I wanted to escape from my actual childhood of like having to go to meetings and stuff like that. So dreams were like my place to go, and the dreams were good. There was there was some reoccurring dreams that I think scared me more when I was younger, only because I was young, and then when I'd have them as I was older, I was like, oh, that wasn't a nightmare, but when I was a kid, it was a nightmare, but that's just just like with the age difference or over time, having those same dreams but having different actually different feelings or reactions to them because you're older or younger. So
is your family still at the Unionville house?
Yeah. I was actually I was there a couple of days ago just for dinner. I haven't stayed over, so I look forward to spending the night there. I heard it was pretty noisy after I left. My aunt said it literally sounded like my dad was in his room, like going through his drawers looking for shit.
Well, so she's definitely heard some things then as well.
She's heard some stuff too, yeah. So
I mean, there's a lot of activity there, just for the fact that so much of your family has passed away in that house.
I mean, it's very much there. Everybody's ashes are right there. It's like, it's alive and kicking.
Were any of their deaths unexpected in the home, or was it when they were sick?
So, 3 out of the 4, it was like they knew it was going to happen. With my Aunt Mary, she found out she was sick, and literally it just happened like that fast. Like it just was like within weeks, she just, that was unexpected. She went to use the bathroom and landed on the floor and then never got up, So, but everybody else was like terminal, and it was like with my dad and my uncle, we watched him pass. I think my grandfather passed peacefully in his sleep, but he was like pretty much under like intensive care. At the end, he had multiple strokes, I believe, and who knows from there. But he was in in the house, being taken care of right to the end. So, so most of them were, none of them were violent. None of them were, but most of them were pretty peaceful. I think Mary, I think my cousin Tommy made it to her before she passed. So I don't think she was like completely alone. You know what I mean? So yeah, nothing traumatic. I can only imagine being in houses where there's been, trauma.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other thing. That's a whole other thing. So
there's another story. I know we talked about a little earlier before we started recording. You said you might save it for another time, but I think we should touch on it because, a lot of people are listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's about a lot of the people they know through music and bands. And we, a couple weeks ago, you brought it up where you had a tour story with you and Jamie that plays drums in Death Threat.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty interesting. And since we're talking about dreams and, supernatural or ghostly activities, it might be something we can just talk about.
Okay. I mean, what I can do is, first of all, here's the deal. There's a bottle of Polar Seltzer Black Cherry sitting next to me.
Open it right up.
It's empty. Can I crack into it?
Yeah, because we're trying to get Polar as a sponsor.
All right.
Maybe we can drop
There we go.
Name.
Oh, boy, it's spraying everywhere. So
right.
There's that. Sorry, Shannon. Can I get up and get towels to clean that up?
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's only water.
All right. It's got a little sugar in it, Peter.
No.
So what I'll do is, because I don't want to talk about Jamie's part of it, but there was a connection that was realized like just a few months ago, years later, many years later. That tour was, I want to say 2010. So we're talking about a good 8 years ago. But I personally had a horrible, horrible nightmare at our friend's house in Belgium, our friend Skinny J. And it was so intense. I felt the guilt of, I'm assuming, like a horrible murderer or a first-time murderer or something.
Jeez.
Like, it was like the worst guilt, and I could not escape it in the dream. And it was about a girl that I murdered. And I just, in the dream, it was so effing real. It was like, there's no way I didn't. You know what I mean? Like, and this is insane. Why did I do this? Why would I ever murder? And like, I'm going through like, I'm assuming what the emotions are of somebody.
So you're feeling that in the actual dream, these emotions?
In the dream, dude. So intense. Wow. So intense. And it was like in that house. You know what I mean? The dream was there. We weren't in another place. So I see, this is why I wanted to do it another time. But if in the future, even if I just, there's more to it, but basically something horrible happened in that house many years ago. It wasn't a real old house, so it was like maybe like happened in the 50s or something, but there was a violent crime in that house. It may have even been like still a mystery type of thing, you know what I mean? And but I attached to some kind of, I'm assuming the girl who was murdered in that house. She must have like gotten to my mind somehow. And or whatever, met me in the dream and said, "What's up? Let's talk." She was probably really pretty and lured me in. And but yeah, it was absolutely insane, dude. I've never felt anything like that. And I felt guilt in my life. But nothing like that. I was like, this was like insane. It was like I was going through the motions.
All too real.
Like, oh, it was horrible.
As you went to stay there, did you know about the murder prior to that?
I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it. And I think, I'm trying to think, this might have been the second time that we had stayed there. This was like a really good friend of ours. That's why I will connect with Jay and Jamie on this, because there's more to the story and it's good. So, but yeah, we had this weird connection where I think we were both, maybe might have been during the day. Maybe we napped. Maybe we had just gotten in from like a long flight and we napped before the show or something like that. But little did we realize, because nobody talked about it, because I was mortified. I was like, I cannot tell these people that I just had a dream that I murdered a girl in their house. Yeah. And I was like trying to find her body. I was like, I can't tell these people. Like, his mom would give me like the coolest, like old Belgian, like like religious objects. I think she knew someone was up with me. She would always give me crosses and saint, like traveling like saints and like all this stuff. But it was all really old school, like European, like Catholicism.
Protection.
I believe so. I believe she knew someone was up with me. And there's people that have that too, that could just look at you and be like, "Oh, you need some help," just in that way. Like you need these guardians. So I didn't tell them, but then I think I did later on. It was like I had to tell them. I was like, "This is too crazy." I think I just told Jay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Jay was like, "Well, hey, guess what? This crazy shit happened in the house." And but like I said, I don't remember the details of the story, but it was one of the worst feelings I've ever had. I was so happy when I woke up. I don't know if you guys have ever had just bad dreams where you've done something bad. I mean, this is not the first time I've had something like that. This was that intense, though, that I was like, I couldn't talk myself out of it in the dream that I hadn't done it. You know what I mean? I was like, I'm fucked. I did this. Why did I do it? I'm going to jail for life.
Yeah, something
you know what I mean?
something crept up into your dream state, and planted that seed there. That's scary.
Yeah. So it was really, really intense. So Jamie somehow had a similar dream about a similar girl, and it was happening at the same time. So she was trying to get somebody's attention, and who knows? Maybe I was one that ended up with it.
Right. Well, probably because you seem to be the one.
Because I'm more, yeah. And he was like, I mean, and Jamie, and Jamie was like, he's like, nothing like that's ever happened to me. He's like, I can't believe we're just talking about it now. I was like, dude, that's crazy. Like it was.
So years later, you came to the realization you both had a similar dream at the same time, at the same house, in the same country.
Yeah, we were dealing with the same craziness.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I was sick with anxiety from it. I was like, me too, dude. I was like, that's so crazy.
Well, that's unreal, and that's what puts such a twist on that story.
Yeah.
What makes it scary is that, I mean, I'm hearing the story for the first time, but I'm thinking maybe it wasn't the murdered girl trying to get your attention or creeping into your heads, your minds, but the murderer.
But the actual murderer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe that's that emotion I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it was like, whoa. I was like, why am I feeling this? Whoa. It was really intense. I could not wait to wake up.
That's very heavy.
Yeah. It's I'm very, and actually, you know what? Okay, well, this is one that I forgot about, but I kind of referenced it earlier about the whole Get Out thing. We were on tour. This was that same year, 2010, I think. We were on tour, and we stayed at Jamie's his father's place in Indiana, and I think we had like a day off or something. The next day off, and I was passing out, and sometimes I think I feel like I have sleep apnea. Like I definitely, if I lay back, I'll like wake up and have trouble breathing and stuff like that. And I've snored my whole life, and so I kind of had that kind of a feeling, like something was on my chest. But I was sleeping in the living room, and this was like a new house, but on old land. I don't know what had been there before, if it was another house or an old farmhouse or something. But anyways, I'm just laying on the couch, and it wasn't even during the witching hour or anything. It was like 10 o'clock at night. Everybody was chill. Just, I think people were up in the kitchen, and I'm passing out. And there was a room straight across from me. It was like kind of like a washroom, and the light was off, but the door was open. So the light from the room I was in, the living room, was like a cathedral ceiling type place. The lights were on, and so there was a little bit of light going into the room, so I could kind of see it. So I'm kind of like laying on the end of like a really big sectional couch. So I'm on like the small end of it, just like kicked back. And I start falling asleep, and I just start dreaming about that room. And I'm laying, I'm kind of like above myself now, and I can see myself, and I'm looking at that room. And I kind of just like, it can't really, it's like, it'd be like if you zoomed in, if you were making a movie, and it was like I zoomed into the room, and it was dark, and it was almost like there was like a cloud of smoke. And it literally was just like, get out. Like, that's not even a good like version of the voice. It was so evil. And I kind of like went flying back to the couch and just laid there, and I felt something on my chest, you know? And I mean, we've all like heard of like stuff like that, you know? But it was like something on me, and I woke up kind of gasping like I do sometimes. And I was like, and then I looked at the room, and it all came back, and I was like, and I remember I asked his stepmom, I was like, you guys ever, just like the next day, I couldn't even believe I got back to sleep. It kind of shook me up, because I'm used to nice ones, but this one was like, get out. And I mean, obviously I wasn't getting out, but I wasn't going to go sleep outside. That's for sure. It's like, you're going to have to make me, I'm just going to go back to sleep. But But she goes, yeah, we hear some stuff. So like, doesn't seem like a nice one. I was like, no, it's not a nice one.
Oh, so to hear someone like say it so nonchalantly too is like, you
Yeah, I
gotta
think
wonder
they're
like what
kind of,
they've heard or seen, you know.
yeah. So, I mean, this was on, I forget what part of Indiana we were in, but it was,
Mhm.
we were out there. We were off the main roads. So who knows? But yeah, a lot of spirits lurking out there.
And it seems
Um,
like they find the creepiest and the darkest places to
Yeah.
hide and show themselves.
Oh, definitely. I mean, a lot of stuff that like some good horror movies are made of. You're like, okay, yeah, no, that could happen there. Like,
Yeah.
I take something like that where the lights were on and it just told me to get out, and then you hear of other stories that have happened. I mean, I used to live, I'd say maybe 2 miles from the Green Lady Cemetery, in that old campground. That campground's so creepy.
Yeah, it's all
There's-
abandoned, has the fence around it now.
Yeah, that whole area is so creepy. But yeah, I used to live down there. I know people that lived like 4 houses down from that intersection that had some really, really crazy like jackets possessed, like that they were wearing. You know what I mean? That were like making them do crazy stuff, and like a cat statue that came alive that was like holding the door open.
Oh,
In the middle of the night, they'd wake up and they'd see the cat just like walking away, and the door would close, like shit like that, like fully possessed things. We never experienced it, but it was like our friends. You know what I mean? My dad actually, dude, this is crazy. We have time. You got time for another one.
This is great.
Go ahead.
So this is the same area. Pete, are you familiar with Satan's Kingdom in New Hartford?
Yes. Yep.
So Satan's Kingdom, great swimming hole. I mean, probably really dangerous, but it's got some old stories attached to it, of some really bad, crimes. Really, like, I think crimes, was it Indians on the people in town or vice versa?
Yeah,
I forget.
There's quite a few like stories about it. If you Google Satan's Kingdom, but it's class. This is actually named Satan's Kingdom. It's not a nickname. It's a true section, where people can go tubing down the river, and it's a nice outdoor place. But it's got some real lore to it.
Yep.
Yeah, there was definitely some bad stuff went down. But long story short, we had a family that had to move from a house up there because they were having possession problems. They literally had like a Smurf doll that like came to life, and was alive in the house, like with the kids. It was like, and I mean, this is just like what they told us to me. That's like really crazy, but I've never seen anything like that. But whatever, they were having like possession shit. So the weird thing is, so a bunch of people helped them move. Usually, like, most people get rid of a lot of the stuff they have if there's like possessions. So they were actually just taking boxes of stuff to just throw away that they had. And my dad was moving a box. And like those black and white composition books? I'm looking at Greta's right here on the primary composition. It was one of those, and it was from like the 60s. And sure as shit, it had my dad's name and address on it. Now, we've known this family, you know what I mean? Like for like maybe 5 years because we went to the same Kingdom Hall. But like my dad didn't go to school with them. They're not from Hartford. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like there was like no connection. And my dad was like, he's like, I haven't, and it was his. Like there was stuff that he remembered writing in it. And he's like, how did you guys get this? And they were like, we have no idea. I've never seen it before. My dad's like a funny dude. He's just like, you gotta be effing with me. Like, what do you mean he's like, this is my composition. How did you get it? He's like, I haven't even seen this since I was a kid. And they're like, we have no idea, Tommy. Like, no idea. And it was his, and it was like his stuff in it. And it was just in this pile of their stuff. And that was the same house. I mean, who knows? That maybe, I don't think he took it because I think he was too weirded out.
Yeah, no way could he take that.
Yeah,
did he open it up and he looked through it and everything?
He did. He looked at it and he was like, "Whoa!" He's like, I don't remember all this. He's like, "But this is definitely me. Like, I remember doing that." I mean, it was stuff from when he was like 5-6 years old.
Oh my god! At least once every episode. At least once every episode, I get goosebumps because there's always one point in a story that does it to me. And that little snippet right there, just all the hairs on my arms just stood up. I'm looking at
Oh, that's awesome. Good. Well, my job is done, my friend.
That's the thing. That whole area of the state has, so much.
There's so much history there. It's like
the haunted cemetery. I mean, the whole state of Connecticut in itself is some of the most haunted areas,
Yeah.
And books written about it, and so much mythology about native stories and
Oh,
mythology of the original settlers, and so much tragedy, in between, like the White Lady of Easton and the Green Lady in Burlington, and Dudley Town and Kent, and
Oh, dude, Dudley
all
Town.
these spots.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to stop the both of you because I actually got the goosebumps for the first time too.
Oh, yeah?
No, but
Good.
what you said about the family, I don't think I've ever used this word before on the Stockbury Dark, but the first word that comes to mind is evil. What you mentioned about the family is dolls and stuff.
Oh,
being
yeah,
almost
that stuff
possessed.
just scary.
But
And I mean,
it connects to your dad to like whatever that was. It was kind of attacking his childhood. You know what I mean? If it had been something recent, like a set of keys or something, but like whatever it went after was something that happened to him, or whatever he was doing when he was like 5 or 6 years old. That's pure evil.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. I wonder if what kind of connections he had, because he would always, when I was a kid, remember I was talking about these dreams, and I'd be like, he'd be like, hey, what's wrong, buddy? I'm like, I had a weird dream last night. I could never really explain it to him because it was like these dream worlds that I wasn't even like fully grasping yet, but I just had these weird feelings like I'd been there before or whatever it was, and he would always be like, oh, and it would be around the full moon, for whatever reason. They say people, in general, sometimes the movement of the planets and all this stuff, people have like weird dreams and stuff like that.
Right.
But a lot of times I remember, because being a kid, I'm like, oh, Dad, I had this dream last night. He's like, oh, remember, it's the week of the full moon. You're gonna have weird dreams for a couple nights. So and that's probably when I'd be more connected to it, And then I noticed it as an adult, those little things just stay with you. And I have a weird dream, and I kind of be like, "Oh, was it a full moon?" And now you can just look at your phone, like, "Oh, yeah, it was a full moon last night." I don't have to actually remember or look out my window.
Right.
I feel things still change around when it's a full moon.
Yeah, absolutely.
200%. Like things get wilder. I don't know.
Yeah, now I believe in it all. It's crazy. I just, I think anything's possible.
A lot of times I don't like explanations to those things either. I'd just rather keep that like mystery and that feeling of like
100%. Because I agree, Pete. I agree.
Well, those are some awesome stories, Aaron. Thanks a lot, man, for sharing.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. You took us along for a crazy ride.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess I got a little too comfortable down here.
No.
Well, good. I'm happy to share it, and like I said, it's a major part of who I am. So I'm definitely a weirdo. In that sense, I'm very connected to things. So. Yeah. But yeah, I appreciate you guys letting me talk. And that was good. There was a couple of things I hadn't even. There was a few things I really wanted to talk about. It was mostly, about 54 Forest and then 49 Maynard.
Yeah.
But it was fun to see what else it triggered, and some of these other little things. And there's so many more. I gotta start writing them down.
It's happened on so many of the episodes so far where we get into things, and towards the middle and the end, they're like, oh, I just remembered this, and this, sets an emotion, another whole thing. And sometimes it connects like these other things that they'd never thought of before until you're verbalizing 1 hour of like these stories, and you start finding these little weird connections to things.
Yeah.
That's what kind of like live and doing it like this is pretty cool, because you get these actual true human reactions to it all as we're going along.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And with that said, it would be great to have Aaron on for an episode 2.
Yeah, of course.
Part 2.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Count me in. I'll bring Jamie. Jamie can do a guest spot. We'll talk. We'll tell we'll get him, and if we can get Jay even, and somehow, because it's such a crazy story. But yeah, no, I'm glad to share with you guys, and I think there's a lot of people out there that may have connections that don't realize it and just don't know what it is. We live in such a crazy world, and everybody's feeling so crazy. So it's cool. People are very drawn to this stuff. I think it's great, and I'm happy to share with people. I mean, I want to do more with it at some point. I want to do a book, or I've always thought about just doing a graphic novel of my dreams.
So I mean, between you and having your brother do some artwork for you, I bet that would be incredible.
Yeah, I think it, because it kind of rolls off the tongue for me, and I can go deeper. I could map out that dream dream world.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk to Max G. Morton about his. I wonder if we have any. Well, we must have some paths that cross there. So
Imagine that.
yeah. Awesome.
All right,
guys.
Aaron. Well,
Thank you
thanks
so
a lot,
much,
man. Yeah, you're very
Absolutely.
welcome. We had a great time today. And anything else you'd like to add, Klaus?
Everybody check out Death Threat if you haven't already. But I'm guessing 99.9% of our listeners.
Yep. And next project is the Shadow Dwellers.
Well, yeah. Check out the Shadow Dwellers. It's all about the stuff I've been talking about. It's just in music form. So, yeah, absolutely. Keep your ears out for it.
Perfect. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. And Stockbury Dark signing off.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
No problem, guys. My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you.